Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 114 of my modded Factorio playthrough. So the next thing we need to kind of figure out here is how many belts are we going to want? How big is this thing going to be? And right now, we have our best technology is red belts. And red belts have an underground distance of 6. So probably groups of 6 is good. And how many belts are we using right now? Because we want this to be an upgrade, and we also want it to be future-proof. So we're doing about 1 red belt of each resource right now. It's not exact, but see, we do have our red belt here, our red belt of iron and whatever. We want to have substantially more than this to make it worthwhile of doing this, but we also want to have an ability to expand. So how about, let's just pick an obligatory number of 3 red belts worth of product. So we're going to have 3 belts here. But now there is the question of expansion, and expanding wide and expanding tall. If we only need 3 belts, or we plan to need 3 belts, we're like, all right, we need 3 belts here. And we would say, well, this is our sapphirite, and then these 3 belts are going to be our stereotype. But then there's no room to expand after that. We've taken up all of our expansion room. So one thing we can do is say we need our 3 belts of sapphirite, but then leave 3 spaces. 3 empty spaces right here. And that is to expand wide, so we can say, at some point in the future, if we wanted to upgrade to 6 belts of sapphirite, we could. Because it's already been built into a factory, and we have room for it. So that's what building wide is. It's basically leaving gaps, leaving empty space in your factory. What about building tall? Well, right now, this is the best technology we have for belts. And we're not that far away from express belts. But that's an example of building tall, is by upgrading your technology. So let's say we didn't have access to reds, we just had yellows. Well, we can say, all right, our 3 belts of sapphirite. And then if we wanted to expand the factory, we would upgrade to red belts, which doubles the speed. So this is the equivalent. This is twice as much as what we started with, if we started with 3 yellow belts. And so what about going wide and tall, doubling down? Well, if we have 3 red belts here, with 3 empty spaces, that means we can have 6 red belts. And then, see, express belts are a speed of 40 items per second. Well, these are 26.6. So that's a 50% increase. So if we had 6 red belts and we turned them into blue, that would give us the equivalent of 9 red belts. So if we built our factory with 3 red belts and then 3 empty spaces, that means that potentially we could triple our output without moving anything, without rebuilding anything. We could either expand wide by putting more belts in, or if the technology is available, expand tall and upgrade the technology of the belts to move more resources per second. So now the next question is, how many belts do we actually need? And it's actually a complicated and big number. Because on the surface, we are going to need 6 different of the basic principal resources. That means 6 groups of 6 minimum. But we also need to remember that we're going to have byproducts and finished products that are also going to be on the belt temporarily until they find their way to a train station. Now, the math to figuring out or predicting how many of these belts we're going to need is fairly complicated, and there's different ways you can go about it. So on the first stage, you can see how 2 ores go in, and then 2 ores come out, plus a byproduct. So on the surface, that would mean we would need 3 extra pairs of belts, because if 6 belts go in, 9 belts must come out. So we had 6 groups of 6. Well, that means we would need 9 groups of 6. But actually, the ore crushing isn't the most complicated step. It's actually the flotation cell. Because if you look at these other stages, you take the chunk and you put acid in to get your output. And the final stage, you just get your output with no input. But with the washing stage, the hydro refining, you see how purified water, so we have 2 inputs, our ore and purified water, and then we get 3 outputs, our ore, gems, and the dirty water. So actually the hydro refining is the most complicated step and has lots of belts. Now, I say belts, but you know, these are going to have pipes, but pipes do have a throughput limit. So even though we're not literally going to be placing belts, we still need the room for the pipes to fit. So let's just, you know, air quotes, call them belts. So how many belts would we need? Well, it's a little complicated because each refining stage or for the different resources is a little different. But the basic concept is we have 6 groups of 6 for each resource, and then a group of 6 for the purified water, so that's 7, and then a group of pipes for the dirty water, which is 8. We're actually going to refine or clean up the water on site. So that's actually going to be a little different. But let's just say 9 groups of 6 for the output of cleaning up this water. And then we need 1.5 for all these gems, which we're going to be making a ton of, which is going to bring us up to 10.5. Let's just call that 11. So now we're at 11 groups of 6, so this is going to be a very large bus. Let's just add 1 on there and call it 12, just in case the math was wrong somewhere. So we're looking at 12 groups of 6. Yes, that is how big this is going to be. In theory. You know, there's going to be a lot of gaps in there right now. It's going to look crazy, but it only looks crazy because it's all empty. We're simply, from the gate, building something very large to expand for unknown future needs. It's kind of how I'm looking at it here. So now we know exactly how much. 12 groups of 6. I'll just leave that there for now. There are additional considerations that we need to talk about in relation to how to build the machine groups to be expandable, both wide and tall. But we'll get into that later since we're not actually building the machines right now. We're just finishing up the rail network to supply the resources. So I felt that describing this was important because of the position of the train stations being up at this top left corner here. Let's see, anything we need to bring along? Yeah, it'd probably take up a ton of space here. We only have so much on this train. I guess it would be nice to have multiple cars, but the longer the train is, the more cars it has, the more difficult it is to use, so there is some stuff we could grab. Basically, if we're going to have these big old buses, we need our bricks to mark where the bus is, just to make laying things down easier. So let's grab some of the resources for that. I'll just load up all the way. Oops, that was a mistake. Shouldn't have driven that way. Let's see, Crutinium is low, but it's actually not that low. We can leave it. Let's come up here and grab a ton of bricks. Let's just grab all of them. Although that said, I'm not sure what we have room for. Got some space though. Yeah, let's do that and see how well that works. See, hopefully we don't run out of space. I think we're pretty good. We got tracks. Yep. Manual control. We won't have to do so much manual driving in a little bit. Once the track is complete, I'm going to put little mini train stations at the various locations we might actually be driving the train to. Just to make moving around easier, so we could automate both directions of travel rather than just the one. Okay, now that we've matched up, we're really close to here. Instead of making a track go over there, I think I'm just gonna drive the long way around. Be easier. Let's see, while we're here, probably switch this to be one lane. So we don't need any of these signals, because this is all going to be one solid section of track. Right there. Oops. Well, another reason why I wanted to come from this direction is to make sure the T signals made it. It looks like they do. Excellent. Because otherwise, if there was a break in the lines, the signal would still reach because it's a circle, so they would have gone both directions. So by coming from this direction, we confirm that T signals are good and the circuit network is connected properly. This is like connecting the Transcontinental Railroad. All the work that went into this, it's pretty momentous to have everything finally connect. There we go. A complete grid. Nice. Okay, I believe we just have one more train station to connect here, and then everything will be ready. It's kind of obligatory exactly where this happens, but for straightness, let's try to make it straight. Let's cut all the necessary trees down. Okay. Let's get this T section in here. Okay, so this stuff's in the way. And connect the circuit network again. It is a little annoying having to kind of redo this, but most of it's automated. Like, how annoying would that be to have to go through the entire electrical network and place these down? Okay, we can run some power poles. Connect the final bit of power. Oop. One of those doesn't have power. There we go. Okay, it looks a little weird again. Let's preload it. Let's make sure this is balanced. Looks like it. It's going from 7 to 6, so it's not going to be completely perfect here. And it's not 7 full belts, so we're not going to get 6 full output belts. Okay, let's go yellow. This is a Jivolite. Yep. Jivolite 1. And there we go. Finally, after all that work, we now have a fully functional rail network. At least in a basic form, and definitely going to be appreciating that later with all that automation. Before we go back to base, let's set up another train station real quick. Let's put it up here. Sure. Actually, if we put it right here, it would be perfectly lined up. Technically, I think the circuit network is passing over this pole. See, it's still on this pole right here. It's just not connected to that one, so I don't think we need to mess with it. It might cause some confusion if we think it's connected and we disconnect this and put it back, but whatever. And then let's put this right here. See, are there any more train stations in here? Yes. Boom. Let's see. Robo Rocket. Let's call this sorting north. I don't know if I changed the color in that other one, but so now we have somewhere for the train to actually go. So now we can go between these two locations very easily. That's all the time we have for today, so I'll see you at the next episode. Thanks for watching.